Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Chaney In The Shadow of the Mountain. I'll admit that Chaney kind of caught me off guard in 2021. It took me months to get to his album that year, but when I finally did, I heard something really special. A harrowing and focused slice of Kentucky indie country with an underrated groove and a terrific fiddle that maybe ran a little long to sustain its bone-deep, raw intensity, but was plenty great all the same. A real cut above many of his more accessible and even successful peers. So I was prepared not to make the same mistake again with this going under the radar too long. It was a shorter project, 9 songs, 1 instrumental, which prompted some concern from the diehard fans who would have already heard a couple songs live already, but I wasn't among that group, so I was going into this hoping we'd just get more great indie country in a pretty haphazard year. And yeah, this is a prime example of how a subtle elevation can turn, okay, pretty damn great, into, oh wow, this is special. If this doesn't break him into the bigger conversation, something would have been completely mishandled. To put it bluntly, Chaney dropped one of the best country albums, one of the best albums of 2025. It'll be hard to argue against that, but the devil's in the details of how he did it, because while keeping his rock-solid formula intact, the other vein he tapped into to accentuate this sound, it both makes sense and also feels like it would do gangbusters if the right critical audience tapped in now. 90s alternative country, even grunge. Now, the rootsier side of grunge back in the 90s had country parallels, even if some folks didn't want to admit it at the time. Less to the contemporaneous neo-traditional revival of the late 80s, early 90s, more to the outlaw textures on the fringe that would spark up the alt-country scene, and thus it feels incredibly natural that then following it down to Appalachia. You definitely hear in the deeper, richer vocal affectations that Chaney has developed, alongside the emphasis on low-end groove and bass lines. But you also hear it creeping into the more complicated chord progressions, right from into a terrific slow burn instrumental intro. But it's also more prominent on the grisly grind, the braying and yet weirdly staccato breakup song Let the Love Die, especially in that vocal line, also probably my least favorite on the album. One of the few points where the groove feels oddly stymied, but then the stellar 1-2 closing punch of the haunted Feels Like Rain, and the terrific picking alongside the heavier drums on Alone, and especially Spirit, which feels like a lost grunge power ballad from 1994 that could have become a classic both then or now. But as the title track brings that rich fiddle and ponderous bass around the brittle touches of fluttery guitar and mandolin, the presence of veteran producer Dwayne Lundy, who has worked with both Sturgill Simpson and very early on with Ian No, allows for the pickups to feel gravelly and thick, but with a breadth of warmer tones. The acoustic guitars and mandolins can sound choppy and raw, but also warmer, a little bit more burnished. The fiddle remains, well, the best it sounds outside of a Dave Cobb album. There's some well-placed feminine backing vocals in order to punch up the arrangement, but where Chaney used to sound a little like a raw, haggard voice on the Sound of the Mountain, with the subtle touches of reverb, his full power is allowed to come to bear. I hear traces of Eddie Vedder on a track like Alone, especially in that vocal arrangement, and I do not make that comparison lightly. And yet, there are still country songs here that are as jaunty and infectious or deeply emotive and powerful as ever, beyond how it's still predominantly acoustic with the fiddle, the mandolin, a lot of the lyrical texture, the exasperated road song of the Unsatisfied, or the winsome peeling touches on the heartbroken veteran war letter of Charlene. They're as country as anything else you're going to hear. But there's also been a slight shift in the writing I want to highlight. Still unflinching in highlighting the ravages of the coal industry in Appalachia and the grind he's had to live to get to this point. Still homesick to a fault, even though life is hard on the mountain. It's what he knows. It draws him ever back. But you can tell now he's seeking some form of release. One reason Spirit is so goddamn powerful is that he knows there's a brighter energy inside him that deserves better than a lot of the stoic weight of years and mental anguish. It deserves to be set free. Then juxtaposed with the Unsatisfied, where it highlights how he's almost damned to be constantly seeking out that passion. And yet, amidst it all, he just wants time at home to think, purge out all the noise, step away from earthly concerns for something potentially more. He hopes you might find some kinship with him taking that journey, or is he just alone? And even is that enough? The language is still plain spoken, but it feels bigger, more existential, more meditative, which is another reason why Let the Love Die feels kind of sour and small to me. It just doesn't match a project that frames its pondering with such biblical weight. And yet where Mercy could often feel lacking in its title for how dark it got, this is looking up at the mountain that's framed by the rising sun, implacable in its weight and shadow, but there is hope, light on the horizon. In short, yeah, this felt stirring to me, in the way that old grunge and alternative rock and country albums of the early 90s did. It almost feels like it's out of that time, and where Cold Chaney's old-fashioned approach to cutting songs over content is a natural fit. So this album, it feels of this moment and of the past, and it's a little timeless for it. A fantastic natural expansion of his sound, no sophomore slump in this trudging ascent, and again, one of the best albums of 2025. I don't need to tell you it's going to be overlooked by a lot of folks. I've seen the view numbers when it comes to indie country reviews, but if you're a country or an old classic rock music fan, especially of an older stripe, you're going to want to hear this. So damn special. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Again, for indie country fans, I know this is not going to get a ton of traffic because my indie country reviews rarely do, but hey, if you're a country fan or if you're a rock fan, you're going to find a lot to get out of this. I'd recommend this in the same way I'd recommend a Jason Isbell album like Weather Vanes, because again, it touches so much of those burnished classic textures that you've got plenty of entry points into the sound. And that grunge texture, it's interesting. I see a lot of some early Pearl Jam in their ballads and some of that, and I do respect that a lot. But hey, leave your comments down there below. If there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you all want to get involved in helping support the channel, add albums to my schedule, or hell, just yell at me on my Discord, link to my Patreon and YouTube memberships is right over there. Don't feel obligated, tough times out there, but the option's available. And one last thing, before I end off, this is probably going to be the last longer full-length review I choose to do. I think I got a couple shorts coming out, but as I said on my Billboard Breakdown channel, which, by the way, if you have been wondering what else I do on Tuesdays, please go subscribe over there. It's a weekly show. But I'm going to be offline, at least when it comes to the channel, for a couple of weeks, because this Sunday I am getting married and then I'm going on my honeymoon, and quite frankly, given my schedule, I owe it to myself to take a break to just churning out content. There will be reviews coming in the times back. The schedule is going to be open one more time on Saturday, and then it's probably going to be closed while again I'm on holidays. I don't need to put that additional stress upon myself. I'm sure you all understand. Again, I'm getting married. I feel like I can give myself a break given that I've already put out well over 100 reviews this year. But hey, beyond that, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.